Mamascocktailhour, so pour it up. Pour it up.
What's up, guys? It's your girl, Zaida Lisa. Welcome to Mama's Cocktail Hour. We have a longtime friend of the show, Todd. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, how are you?
Hold on, let me give you your flowers. He is a Los Angeles-based private investigator, and he is known most recently for the Kim Porter book, but he goes way back. He gained attention for a lot of his perspectives on high-profile cases, such as the O.J. Simpson case, such as the Notorious B.I.G., the JonBenét Ramsey case, and so much more. Welcome, Chris. How are you?
Good, Zeta. Good to see you again. And yeah, I'm glad to see you doing some true crime stuff. So that was kind of perking my interest to want to do some stuff with you because, you know, the Kim Porter stuff was a wild ride. And it's not over, you know, but I mean, the gist of it's over. So I'm interested to do some new projects, and I'm glad that you're getting into true crime because I think, you know, it's a big market and it needs new people because a lot of these people are saying the same thing over and over again. And I really don't think they're fighting for victims. They're really just trying to see themselves on camera and sell t-shirts and mugs and merchandise. So I'm glad to see you kind of dabble into this.
Wow, thanks. That means a lot to me. So, you know, you have been my favorite person in the world since the Kim Porter book. We won't get in that today, but we'll definitely recap at a different time, right, Chris? So we can kind of get into that
Well,
stuff.
the trial's coming up. Everybody get ready. OJ 2.0.
I am on it.
Yeah.
It's going to be, I already know it's Diddy, so you can already imagine that it's going to be messy.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be
But true crime now has definitely sparked my interest. And yes, so who other can I speak to true crime with other than you? So thank you so much for coming on the show. And today I thought it would just behoove of us to speak about the most unsolved case there is, the JonBenét Ramsey case.
Yeah.
And tell me, what made you interested in this case?
Sure. And I wanted to just kind of put out, I told you about Perfect Murder, Perfect Town,
Yes.
which was the book by Lawrence Schiller. And then he directed the TV movie that we both have seen. And I talked to you about, I know Larry Schiller personally.
Wow.
I wanted to show the Ramseys book, which is called Death of Innocence, which is something I think it'd be important for people to read eventually. It's pretty big. They wrote this in about the year 2000, about 4 years after the murder of JonBenét. This other book by Steve Thomas, it's called JonBenét, by one of the lead detectives in Boulder, Steve Thomas. So these two books there's a lot of hidden secrets in here as to if people really want to know the truth. And there's other books that were done about JonBenét, but these two books, along with Lawrence Schiller's book, this is where you're going to see the true story behind who killed JonBenét Ramsey.
Wow. It is a case, I think, of money, power. Also, you know, we spoke earlier about being a parent, right? So there's that aspect. There's also an aspect that I think you brought up is religion, right? That plays a big role in it. So I'm happy to dive into this. So my first question for you, right, is we're gonna start in the beginning. So John Ramsey was a pretty successful guy. He was actually worth $7 million back in 1996. And I just did some quick overview of him, and it looks like he was pretty wealthy, and he was a CEO and president of Access Graphics. It was a computer systems company based out in Colorado, and he was really successful. Do you feel like any of his success had to do with the fact why they weren't automatically like a suspect?
Well, I think that the parents, being a white wealthy couple, right, in an idyllic town like Boulder, they were like a picture perfect family.
They were.
So it was hard for people to visualize them being involved. That's number one.
I agree with that.
They were very classy people. They
Rich.
were well spoken. She was Miss West Virginia.
Yes.
Her sister was Miss West Virginia too. So these are kind of like elitist type people, right? Good looking, smart, have money. I'm not going to say they have power. Nobody knew who John Ramsey was
Good point.
before
It happened.
Yeah. Patsy would have been more known by the beauty pageants and her sister for sure than John Ramsey. But he had sold his company to like, I think it was Lockheed Martin or
Yes.
Northrop Grumman, someone. It was sold. And so they had only lived in Boulder like 4 or 5 years. He was from, they met in Atlanta. That's where his company was starting. She's a Southern girl and was living in Atlanta. They lived in the same apartment complex in Atlanta. That's how they met. So it's an interesting story. But to answer your other question too, that I glossed over, is I grew up with the JonBenét case. Any of the cases in the 90s, OJ, Kurt Cobain, JonBenét, Tupac, Biggie, those are like that's my era, right? That was me in high school and in college and as a young man.
Right.
So from 90 to 99 or 2000 was a very important stage of my life. So a lot of people always say this is like Mr. 90s. Well, it is, because these are the things that I lived these cases, not as an investigator, as a person, as a
Right.
fan.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? I never thought I would be an investigator. I wanted to be a movie director. So I wasn't had nothing to do with that. My stuff came later. So a lot of people kept asking me to do JonBenét. So I didn't want to for a long time.
Really?
It was disturbing.
Yeah, very
It just was
disturbing.
And so finally, after OJ, Natalie Wood, Zodiac, Aaron Hernandez, and these other civilian cases I decided, let me do it. Let me do it once.
Wow.
I did it once with Cinemills TV. But now that John Ramsey poked his head out with Joe Berlinger and Netflix, and he started running his mouth again, I'm back. Because I've issued a challenge to him and Joe Berlinger to debate me about this case. Oh yeah, I've done it on Sean Atwood, and I'm doing it on your show today. So,
Okay. So, question: What are some of the things that stand out in the case for you immediately that made you want to take on the case and say, you know what, I want to do this one?
I think on any cold case, if it's high profile, if it's famous, right? If it's has a brand behind it, we'll call it, or it's a household name. When the cases are not solved, they're already fascinating too.
Yeah.
So like Natalie Wood went on for 40 years. So I was like, why can't anybody figure it out? OJ was the same way. Why can't anybody figure out if OJ had help or not? What's so complicated? Same on JonBenét. What's so complicated? And as you look at it and you start to see very obvious things, you just have to sometimes have the courage to say it.
Yeah.
A lot of the evidence is already there. There's no video of JonBenét getting murdered, right? There's no pictures of it with the killer doing it. So people, a lot of reporters and investigators or PIs, over time, these things get cemented. They become even harder to deal with. So that's kind of my shtick, that's what I wanted to bring you something new. As you got into true crime, I was like, I want to help you. I want to help you because you're going to get polluted by all these other frauds in true crime. And some of them do good things, but most of them, they are not victim advocates. They are not.
Right.
They like to shock people. They think they're storytellers. They're trying to, I'm repped at WME, CAA. I have a podcast, and there's pretty girls, and that's not what this is.
Right.
Solving murders is dirty. It's dark. It's dangerous. These people, they want to spit it out. And look, there's an appetite for it. I'm not saying there's not. So, and look, a lot of the stuff I do, I get censored and blocked a lot because I tell shocking truths.
Yeah.
That people are like, whoa, wait a minute. Let's just leave JonBenét alone. You can't. You guys everybody's still talking about it. They're dragging this girl's name through the mud every day. You know, think of her. What is she, if she's looking down from heaven, she sees her dad continually lie about evidence, lie about Joe Berlinger. Oh, this is real crazy. It's crazy how the people thought the parents did it. What's so crazy about that, Joe?
Yeah.
What's so crazy about it? They found the child in their house. Okay, with nobody else there. So anyway, but like I said, we need to start from the beginning.
Let's get to the beginning.
Yeah.
So, okay, so let's start with the fact that JonBenét Ramsey was a very over sexualized child. Okay, I feel like she was in pageants. She was in pageants, so one can say like no, okay, but I think, and the reason why I say that, we'll get to that later, but so she was in pageants. Her mom, like you stated, was Miss West Virginia. So her mother was also in pageants.
Right.
So there was an element of, could this have been that her mom was a stage mom? You know?
Absolutely.
Right? Absolutely. Like it did seem as if she was very vested in her career. She made sure, I think we got an interview on that specific movie from, I think the person who would teach her pageant stuff. And she said her mom had all of the money for costumes, for everything. So she was very wealthy. So JonBenét Ramsey did very well in pageants. So I thought that was an interesting thing. This was a girl that was all over the place. She was extremely talented. And for something like this to happen to her is like, I think that was also another shocking thing. Like, she was so beautiful. Everyone spoke about how beautiful she was. And that's why I think that there was an element or a theory of like some type of pedophilia because of that.
Okay. Yeah. And and a lot of theories come up with that and that gets dark. I never focused on that. I never accused anybody of essaying her. To me, this was staged in the crime scene, okay? But I will say this. Look, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right? So she was pedigree. Her mom was beautiful. Her mom could sing and dance and act, and she was Miss West Virginia, as was her sister. JonBenét was, I believe, I don't know if I say the word groomed, but she was being taught to be Miss America.
Yes.
Okay? And she might have been Miss America. It's just like any football family. The dad has the son, he's a linebacker. The dad was offensive lineman. It's the same thing. Yep. The genes are there. The fate's there, right? So, but when we say the word pedophilia, what I think is, look, and I know there's a guy, we'll get into him, who I think is a fake suspect, and he had the shrine to her. Look, there's a lot of creeps on JonBenét. A lot. Okay? John Mark Carr, whatever his name was too, the Gary Oliva guy, these are creeps. Okay? And the people I know where the story started from when they said, oh, there's this sex ring and she was killed in a sacrifice. People get just way off the rails. Okay? Wow. Yeah, you can look that up. That was, I forgot the woman's name. She started this. They sued her. There was all this stuff. So, but the pageant thing, I don't look at it as a bad thing. Yes, they were very young. Okay, you have family. I have a family. I get it. I may not dress up my daughter at 6 years old. Well, she started at 4.
Yeah.
So, right. So I don't know if I would necessarily do it, but I don't blame them and say like, well, they're evil parents. They're not evil because of that.
Right. I agree. I mean, I think, like you said, everybody, no matter whatever it is that you grew up doing, you're going to be presenting that over to your kids, and they're going to take, right? So let's move on to the day of like when everything happens, because the dates are very funny here. So it looks like she goes missing the evening of December 26th.
Correct. She's reported missing at 5:50 a.m. on December 26th. But remember, on her tombstone, they say that she died on Christmas Day.
Right.
And that's very telling.
That is very telling.
Right, because they want to steal Christmas. They want to show that she died on Jesus's birthday, right? In theory. The
Yep.
coroner said she died at 1:23 a.m.
On December 26th.
Correct.
Wow.
The official time of death is not Christmas. So, in this, with killers and suspects, they want to hurt you. And they want to own the narrative. You're not going to tell them when it is. They will. This is demon shit. This is dark stuff.
There's a lot of twists and turns.
Yes.
So mom, dad, and the other child, which is his name is Burke, right? The
Burke,
brother. They went to a party, a Christmas party, and they came home and they reportedly took JonBenét Ramsey straight up to the bed. She said dad took her up to bed, right? So
that story changes.
It
that
does.
Story changed, right? Red flag, flat, right there. But go on.
So dad takes her up to bed. Mom says that she then goes and takes off her clothes and changes her into her pajamas, and that she doesn't see her again after that. They also took photos of the room, and they asked mom whether or not she's seen anything that was out of place. Apparently there was pineapples by the bed.
Well, the pineapple's in the kitchen.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. In the kitchen.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So mom setting the scene. Mom says that she dropped her off there. She wakes up in the middle of the night. Her first initial story was that she was doing a load of laundry. She said that she was putting something in the laundry and that she went back to check on her and that she noticed that she was gone. But that story also changes.
The pineapple is important because there's like a glass of iced tea and a bowl of pineapple with milk. And this was something JonBenét liked.
Really?
She definitely had it because the remains are in her stomach.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, there's differing stories about did they feed her? Well, Patsy Ramsey's fingerprints are on the cup and the bowl. So they try to say like they didn't feed her.
Right.
That she had done it herself. Okay. We know most likely when she came home, she was not asleep. And or you could say, did she wake up? I'm hungry. You know, kids are. They can be starving. And we got to feed them, right? Either way, JonBenét Ramsey ate pineapple and milk with a glass of iced tea before she was murdered. Period. End of story.
And they found that in her small intestine. So that was
undigested. Yes. So if the Ramseys really wanted to clean up, they could have discarded that stuff. They didn't. There's a lot of things they didn't discard. So, and also John Ramsey says, well, I read her a story. I read her a book. Then he says he didn't.
Yeah.
So, and then they asked John Ramsey, what was Patsy wearing in bed? I don't remember. Because she never got in bed.
Right. That was a big piece of evidence too, that she wore her clothes from the Christmas party. The
next morning, she has not changed her clothes at all. Because she never went to bed. And so John is trying to cover that up. I don't remember what she's wearing. Well, yeah, she was in bed. Well, did she get up? You have to remember, the parents were not interrogated for 4 months.
Yes.
So they have a long time
to get their stories
coordinated. So, yeah.
That was one of the things that I felt like this case had a lot of corruption. And I don't know if the corruption had to do with the fact that, like I said, John Ramsey was a very successful businessman and he had the money to kind of make things go away. I don't know, guys. I'm just throwing it out there. I think there was a lot of corruption. There was actually, I feel like, a lot of detectives that believed very strongly that the parents had something to do with it, but yet they don't investigate them for 4 months. And they allow that. They were almost teetering around the fact to interview them. Why do you feel like that is?
Okay. Well, let me say this. They give their fingerprints and their blood test and the hair sample and, the handwriting. They let them take some handwriting samples. Right. It doesn't matter. They were not interviewed for 4 months. Yeah. They also were not interviewed till a year later for the second time. Okay. That happens in 98. Steve Thomas, one of the lead detectives, writes the letter, the public open letter in the Daily Camera, they called it, the newspaper, on JonBenét's birthday in 1998, August 6th.
Wow.
And he says after they did this, remember in the movie, they do the presentation in the
Yes.
auditorium or at the Coors Center, and
Yes.
and they're giving all their evidence of like parents. We're not saying first degree murder, maybe second degree, maybe child endangerment, something. The DA, Alex Hunter, and his deputy DA, Pete Hofstrom, they refused to go with it.
I know.
So my point is this. It's like a war between the DA's office and the Boulder PD.
Right.
So the Boulder PD keeps saying parents. And so does the FBI.
Wow.
And they go to Quantico, and that's in the movie too. When they travel to Virginia, remember?
Yes.
And they
Yes.
get in the room, and Lou Smith is there, but he doesn't say much because he's trying to say the parents are innocent.
Yes.
The FBI tells them this ransom note is not normal. It's too long. It's done. This is most likely someone in the house of the family. We don't know if it's the mom. We don't know if it's the dad. We don't know if it's the son. But most likely the intruder theory is BS. Okay?
Wow.
So, but this is my point here is, so the DA, Alex Hunter, refuses to arrest them. The Boulder PD for over a year and a half compile evidence, bring in experts, have the FBI. The only people that don't think Patsy wrote the ransom note are the people that work for John Ramsey.
Yes.
Everybody else thinks she did. And so the DA himself kind of buddies up with the Ramseys.
Yep.
And this guy was lazy. He barely had any trials, Alex Hunter. He did all these plea deals. He had some weird 90% plea deal rate. Like, he never took people to trial. Like, so he was lazy. They love the press. They don't want to solve the case.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that happened on Delphi. Someday we'll talk about Delphi, the murder of the two girls in Indiana. They didn't want to solve it.
Wow.
Because they couldn't visualize, even though it was right in front of them. Same on JonBenét. Same on O.J. Simpson. Same on Natalie Wood. This is a systemic problem with DAs and police. And the O.J. case changed a lot of things about, we better have some solid evidence, right? Yeah. We need hard evidence because these lawyers are so good, and there's a lot of rules for the defendants, protections. You better have something. So the brief is, you had two warring parties.
Yep.
The DA and the Ramseys versus the Boulder PD and the investigators at the FBI.
And I feel like that was one of the key factors why things didn't get done, right? Going back to the ransom note, because I think I think it's interesting that they find that the ransom note was torn from a notepad in the house.
Right.
So
and using a pen, and the pen has no fingerprints on it. So it's wiped, right? So if Patsy Ramsey wrote the ransom note, she wipes the pen. Right. There's a lot of other evidence that's wiped too. Okay.
So the ransom note starts it, and I thought it was interesting that a lot of the verbiage that you said that the ransom note was long, but it was also written in a very formal way. And in the movie, I think one of the friends was like, wow, this sounds like someone from the South could have written this. Like, so it was almost alluding to the fact that she herself could have written that letter. What are your thoughts?
Well, they talk about saying like the word attaché.
Yes.
Like that's a woman would say attaché, like not a man, right? And there's a lot in this ransom note. There's a lot, okay? There's a lot of stuff. So what this is a good point to bring this up now. Let's talk about the ransom note.
Yes.
Because this is one of the first things, this is one of the major pieces of evidence, right? After Patsy calls at 5:52 a.m. and says, she's missing my daughter, my daughter. Now remember, let's remember this. Why didn't you look for her in the house?
The whole house.
The whole house.
That was my biggest concern. Why wasn't the whole house checked even when the police got there?
Well, we don't know. The guy's name was Murphy, and he at first said he didn't go in the room. Then he did, but the light was off. So he didn't see anything. So then he closed the door. So we don't know the true story of whether he went in this room or not.
Right.
Like, And this guy didn't really talk that much. This thing got spun out of control really fast. People were afraid to say stuff. So, but here's my point. First of all, they didn't look in the house for her, and they find her in the wine cellar. They call it the wine cellar. So if John and Patsy Ramsey, why didn't they look in the wine cellar?
Yep, that was my first red flag.
Why would you look in every room? Oh, she got kidnapped. You're not looking. It's a fraud. It's a setup. Okay, that's the first red flag right away.
I agree.
And actually, the cop, French, tells the other detectives when they show up, something's wrong. Something off. And they're like, well, what do you mean? And he's like, something's not right. And he's trying to tell them, like, it's most likely the parents. Like, there is no intruder. There's no forced entry. There's no broken locks. This open window was not open in the morning. It was open later. Like, so, and there were cobwebs on the
cobwebs.
window.
I thought that was interesting because it's like, if it was cobwebs, how can they say that someone was there?
No one came through that window. No one opened the grate. It had a grate. You had to open the grate to go into the, like, down into the windowsill. There were cobwebs from the spider. They had to do all this research on the spider that it died in November. So the cobwebs were not made in December. So it was there the whole time.
Wow.
Oh yeah, there's a lot. This case is almost like OJ, where every piece of evidence has a story, right? It's just all of it. So, but so let's say on the ransom note. Okay, now in the very beginning, saying to John or the Ramseys, whatever it says, Ramsey, John Ramsey, we are a small foreign faction. Okay. Whoever wrote it, which I believe is Patsy Ramsey, they are trying to tell you terrorists are here.
Right.
That's what they mean by small foreign faction. Obviously, Patsy is a little crazy, right? Mm-hmm. And she gets and look, I'm sure she's not in the right state of mind either. Okay.
Yeah. Point.
She may have just murdered her child. So she's stewing over this for hours, right? She has hours to clean up.
Take her time. It's her house. She's comfortable. She knows where things are.
They don't find the duct tape roll. They don't find the white rope roll. She's obviously thrown stuff away. They don't find the one piece of the paintbrush that was broken 3 times. They don't find the one of the pieces. So, but anyway, so the ransom note, look, saying, oh, you got to give us $118,000, and everybody harps on this. This was John's bonus, supposedly. Yeah. How would anyone know that?
That was real sensitive. Like, how would anybody know that specific amount?
You have to also understand, did she mess up by saying that?
Yeah.
Or did she say it deliberately? Was she trying to make it seem like, and this is some of the brilliance, I don't know if I'd call it brilliance, but when they find and then it's signed SBTC, shall be the conqueror or saved by the cross, okay? It can be said different ways of what SBTC means, okay? That's what it says at the end, okay?
Creepy.
That's what I'm saying. It's creepy.
It's very calculated too. It's like she had, whoever did this had time, but I myself do believe, guys, I would like to say I do believe that she had a hand in that.
Let me say this. Let's stay focused. Now let's keep our head in the morning of December 26th.
Okay.
You're the first cop or the first detective. Remember, it's like Christmas.
Right.
Even Steve Thomas wasn't there yet. These detectives were not all working.
Yeah.
So they come on to it like the next day or so, whatever. But we're to believe, based on the ransom note, taken from a pad in the house, written in real time, not brought into the house, written while in the house.
With the pen that was in the house also.
Pen is from the house and the pad. So we're to believe that a terrorist came in the house, or a kidnapper, sat down and wrote for 40 minutes a letter, and no one knew that person was in the house. Right away, that's not believable.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay? To the smell test, right away. I'm not saying you have to be a brilliant investigator. I'm not saying you got to be fucking Chris Todd. I'm not saying that.
It just got to make sense.
It just has to make sense right away. Okay? So as they're reading that, they're reading it as if like this kidnapper ransom note, and then it's in her handwriting. And it matches her handwriting. That's another problem. So it's in her handwriting, on her pad, in her house. She's wearing the same clothes. She never went to bed.
Right.
We don't know if John covered up. We're leaving John out of this because John won 2 defamation lawsuits. We're leaving John out. We're focused on the mom. Okay? If she's covering for John, well, we're still not going to say John. If she's covering for herself, if she's covering for Burke, a lot of the people that thought the son did it is nonsense too. 9-year-old kids don't murder and sexually assault their sisters. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm saying keep your head in the basics, Occam's razor, first feel, right? No
Agreed.
footprints in the snow, no smashed locks, no breaking and entering. They don't hear anything. They don't see anything.
The house is never checked. The house is never checked. There's so many people inside the house, which I thought was creepy. So there was all these people, and it just so happens that detective, the female detective, comes out and says that she needed help. She said she needed backup. She said there was too many people in and out the house. She couldn't keep her eyes on everybody, and they tell her to, give the father something to do.
And also the reason she's inviting everybody over is because they contaminate the crime scene.
Yeah.
So to get the Fleets and the Fernies over, and then the chaplain's there. Okay? This is a crime scene. And I'm not saying like, look, this is how they beat you. This is how they beat everybody. And sometimes on these cases, it just fits perfectly. Like OJ, like Natalie. You lost. They beat you. It's it. Just accept it. They beat you. They brought in their friends, trampled the crime scene, didn't search the house. The body's in the house.
Wow.
So they have no excuse of not finding her body. No, you knew where she was, John and Patsy. You didn't want to find her.
Yeah.
You didn't want to find her. And then he carries her up the stairs.
Contaminates her body with all his DNA and carries her up the stairs.
Pulls the duct tape off her mouth, undoes the rope. And I'm not saying in a normal person that you might not invite family and friends over for support. You might. I get it. Okay? But hindsight being 2020, looking at a cold case, you're trying to solve it. You're trying to say what really happened. God took Patsy. She's gone. Karma's a bitch. Whatever you want to call it. John Ramsey, for him to go on Netflix with Joe Berlinger is foul.
Yeah.
Is foul. And for Netflix to do that special, it's not really on them. They're not investigators. They're not cops. They want to tell a story. All these people have used JonBenét to make millions of dollars. And they're still doing it. They do it on OJ. Netflix did OJ and JonBenét back to back this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
They're definitely trying to come into money and those views. You know what I think is interesting too? I think that, yes, it was very calculated in that sense. But I think if we even start to look at some of the behavior that happened after, and I think the fact that she was already a pageant girl, I'm talking about Patsy. I think that she played them she played them too. She played a really good job of like the grieving mother, I can't talk right now, I'm grieving. And there was a lot of role play, I felt. I mean, I've never been in that circumstance, knock on wood, never would want to. But you don't know how you would react, but I think it was like very over, and it played well to her.
She's an actor. She's literally like a professional actress in a way. Now look, let's think back to their first interview they give to the public. Yes. When they say, you're out, we know you're out there. They did 2 interviews. I don't know which is the first one. Mm-hmm. When they go on TV and sit next to each other. Yeah. Right? They did 2. There's more than one of these. But we know you're out there. You hug your children really close. You're hitting it on the head. She is playing you.
Absolutely.
She is playing you. And you got played.
Yeah.
The whole country got played.
There was also another play that I thought was significant as well. When she was questioned about the clothing. Now, guys, Chris just spoke about it, but just to go back to it, is she wore the same clothing from the day before, suggesting that when she got home, she never put on her pajamas. She still had, and they verified this with a photo from one of the friends at the party with her and JonBenét Ramsey. It's the actual last photo of them, right, together. So they said that she had on a red shirt, she had on black slacks. So they remember that that's the same clothing that they found her in the next day. So the detectives were kind of going back and forth about how they were going to, bring this information forth. But they did ask her about it. And she said, oh, I don't know. I just picked up the same clothing and I wore it again. She then did an interview after it and wore the exact same clothing that she wore on the interview with the detectives, basically stating that, look, I wear clothes. You're
talking about in the movie when they go, right. He looks at the TV and he goes, she's wearing the same clothes because she's doing that on purpose.
Yep.
So I'm telling you, look, she beat you.
Very calculated.
Yes. Easy, and that was an interesting part of the movie, right? Because he's like, wait a minute. And that's why I told you to watch it, because I wanted you to see the stories of each person of how they're locked on to her. And everything she does, they're seeing it through their goggles of she did it. This is her. She's toying with us. Everything we're thinking, she's trying to disprove it through the public, what she says in an interview. And look, when they get them in an interview, she does this song and dance in there. They interview them separately, which I guess you should, and she does the song and dance. He never cries. Nobody sees John Ramsey cry. I think one time he shed one half tear. So he just stayed to the thing. So he's beating you. She's beating you with the drama. You're out there. We know you're out there. Yeah. And it's like, Patsy, you haven't even given an interview to the police.
Yeah. But you're going
public. Yeah, it's super obvious to me. Now, not everybody's me, okay? And not everybody sees what I see with other cases. I've done over 50 cases.
Wow.
Okay? Lived them. Actively talk to the killers sometimes. Trap them. Lawsuits. DAs. Federal. Local. All of it. That's what people don't know about me. They knew me from, this guy's from, who's Chris Todd? That was the coming out party. Now I want you guys to get to know me before Kim's lost words, to know what I really did for victims. So my point is this. It's super obvious that Patsy did it.
Right.
For me. For you, the more I talk to you or the more you watch a movie or read the right book, see what she's doing, you will see it too. But the veil's got to come down first to say, look at her solely. Only her. And if you think she didn't do it, that's your right too. I'm not forcing it upon you. Then move to somebody else. Then go to John. Look at all the evidence again as John. Then look at it as Burke. This Gary Oliva stuff is fantasy. This John Mark Carr is fantasy. And the media runs to it. And they put him on court TV. The people, let me say this to you real quick too. With Gary Oliva. So Gary Oliva says, I killed JonBenét. He was a homeless guy in Boulder, at the time of the murder, okay? He goes to jail for pedophilia, for child porn, whatever he did.
Right.
Goes to jail, and when he's in jail, he says he kills JonBenét. But then when he gets out, he won't say he did it. So why don't you say you did it when you're out?
Right.
Oh, because you're afraid you're going to be arrested? I thought you did it. See, the Glenn Rogers did the same thing on O.J. Simpson. When he's in jail and he's bored and he's got nothing better to do, he says, I killed Ron and Nicole. But then when you ask him now, he wants commissary money. He doesn't want to talk about it anymore. Mm-hmm. So for Court TV, News Nation, for all these people to stick, to run with those stories, but when I told the story about Patsy, why didn't you have me on? They told me specifically they would not let me on.
Because of your perspective?
Yes.
On it?
Yes.
Wow.
They would not let me say Patsy Ramsey. But they let the people who said Gary Oliva did it with no evidence. None. And that's part of the true crime ruse. That's why I wanted to help you.
Yeah,
want you
I
to
mean, it
understand what
sounds
these
sticky. It sounds sticky already. Like perspectives, guys. Like I'll tell you, I respect your comments. Please drop down in the comments who you think did this. I mean, but we should respect everybody's opinions, right? And you should never be like not told to go on a show because of your perspective. That's crazy.
I was told multiple times through multiple producers, multiple reporters, same thing on OJ. I was not allowed to talk about OJ's accomplice. I was not allowed to talk about Natalie Wood's murder. They told me this before I would go on about Delphi or Tupac or Biggie because they knew who I was. And they'd be like, "You're not just going to blurt out OJ, are you?" I'm like, "Well, I mean, I can. No, we don't want you. We don't want you to." And I'm like, "What are you so afraid of?" Like, you let fake people tell fake stories. And that's why I knew a lot of news is tabloid. It's not investigative. So that's why I was hoping to come to you and give you this little hint of investigative. Don't just ride it. JonBenét, and I didn't think you would, but I'm just saying, like, but moving forward on you can ask me another question, but I'm saying we'll move into the murder, and I want to talk about the DA, the grand jury, Steve Thomas. This is going to also show you the cover up. So I want to go into that.
And it definitely looks like there was a cover up on this one because people couldn't agree on anything. I mean, I felt like how I said earlier, the detective office was all team, like they all thought it was Patsy Ramsey from jump. All the evidence they felt like they set forth pointed in that direction, and they continuously got shut down. So much so that it looks like 4 detectives actually retired during the process of this case because they were just so tired with the back and forth.
Well, and that's the Steve Thomas quits, and he writes the letter on her birthday and says, "I'm quitting because of this case." And that's why he writes it on her birthday. And so the whole I want to make sure. I think it's August 8th. I think she's 6 years old. I don't know if I said August 6th before or the 8th.
Okay.
Someone can fix it. Her birthday. It's on her birthday. It's 1998. I know that. So what he's saying, now watch. This is going to lead into the grand jury.
Okay.
So watch. So about a year and a half goes by, right? We're into 1998. We're almost 2 years into it. Okay. About a year and a half. They do the presentation that they show in the movie.
Okay.
And they all say this and the evidence, and then Hofstrom and Alex Hunter like start looking at Bill McReynolds again, the Santa Claus guy. Like they won't even listen. Like they did, just like these detectives did work for a year and a half, and the DA said in one ear, out the other. Like didn't even care. That's insane. Now watch. So he writes the letter and he quits. And he says, there's a cover up. They've been stonewalled by the DA.
Yes.
We've said it's the parents. I quit. The governor, they all see it, gets to the governor's office because everybody starts talking about it. He does it in the Daily Camera, I think it's called, the Boulder, whatever.
Wow.
Everyone goes crazy. Oh my God, there's a cover up. The governor has to step in and say, you're going to do a grand jury, Alex Hunter. It's over.
Wow.
You're done. They were forced to do it.
If it wasn't for that guy writing that letter. Wow.
They were forced to do it for the parents, meaning you need to look at the parents and you're going to do a grand jury. And that went on for like 10 months. Now watch. So the grand jury goes to look at the parents. They do their interviews. They do their process. They're trying to bring them in. I think they get them partly. They have a weird meeting at a lawyer's firm. There's all these stipulations. They try to say, yeah, we'll go to the grand jury. And they write a letter in 98 saying it's all this ruse. Okay. So the grand jury comes back with their decision. It's put under seal. No one knows what it is.
What?
Alex Hunter does a press conference and goes, there's not enough evidence
Right.
to indict. We're moving on from the
Right.
parents. 12 years later, it comes out that they were indicted by the grand jury. Yes.
What?
That information was hidden from the public for 12 years.
Wait,
Okay.
how can something like that be sealed? Now I'm starting to question all of our judicial system. Like, what do you mean sealed? Like, break it down for us, Chris. Like, so how can they seal a grand jury's decision?
Most grand juries are sealed testimony because they don't want even people to know who the grand juries are run by judges, lawyers, cops, detectives, legal people. Like if legal standing, those are the people, that's your grand jury. It's not a jury of your peers. These are like professionals. Okay? So what I'm saying is they don't want to leak their information out and they don't want people to know what's going on. That's normal. My point is what is very telling is that, and whether Alex Hunter did it or the governor or they're in cahoots, maybe they said, look, it's sealed. The DA has the right to make the decision. It's his county, right? So he makes the decision whether I'm going to take the case or not. The case was presented to him by the police. The grand jury presents it. He decided he's not going to indict.
Right.
But 12 years later, when people find out, they're like, what the heck? So they actually were indicted, not on murder one, on a second degree murder, and or they called it child endangerment resulting in death.
Wow.
On John and Patsy Ramsey. And this is a little thing that John Ramsey doesn't like to talk about. Okay.
Wow.
So that's my point. That's the Steve Thomas letter, his life story. Then he does a Larry King interview with the Ramseys. It's on YouTube. It's fascinating. He goes at him on Larry King and they sue him. And he loses. He loses his house. The Ramseys win the defamation suit against Steve Thomas and another person later on. Yes.
And going back to my original point, like, can we argue here that John Ramsey does have some type of power? Like, he has to have. Why cover up? Why make these people out to be perfect? Why cover this up so much? Like, it had to be money. It definitely had to be money.
I don't think he's paying anybody off. I'm not accusing him of bribing anybody. I will say this, because I did a lot of stuff in Indiana. I do stuff in North Carolina. I have another case in Virginia. Most of the time in murder cases, only half of them get prosecuted. Half. 50%. Okay? Now, JonBenét, Natalie Wood, they fall into the 50%. So there was a lot of evidence on JonBenét. Okay? Their DNA's on her. John and Patsy. Her fibers from her sweater are on the duct tape. That enough in another case would have got her put away. Okay? Now they'll argue, a good attorney, well, yeah, when they saw JonBenét and they brought the body up, she's leaning over the body and the feather, the things are, no, it's on the duct tape on the sticky side.
On the mouth.
Well, it still could have got there. See, they'll argue when you have a murder that happens in someone's house, the DNA for the parents works against the police because they live there.
They live there.
It's
so
easily pushed off. Right.
Wow. That is so interesting. What about the evidence? One of the things that I wanted to bring up was the 911 call.
Patsy?
From Patsy, where they said that they heard Burke's voice. What do you think about that?
That's true. She didn't hang up the phone. And John likes to pretend that didn't happen, and it did. And that's talked about in Steve Thomas's book. That's talked about in the movie that you watch too, where they don't tell the Ramseys they know that.
Yeah.
And Burke says, well, what's going on? And they're like, we're not talking to you.
Yep.
They don't know that she didn't hang up.
Right. And so when they were both questioned about whether or not Burke was up, they said he slept through the night. He slept through everything. And I thought that was very interesting. Did they ultimately ever interview Burke? They did, right?
Yeah, he was interviewed later in 2 different interviews with like a psychologist, and I think one of the cops or DAs was there. There was a lawyer there. Yeah, they interviewed him, but he didn't really know much, to be honest. He really didn't. I think he was asleep during the murder. I think he was awake by the parents screaming, yelling,
Frenzy.
fighting. They're probably arguing about it. They're
Yeah.
crying. I mean, come on. She's dead at 1 a.m., right? Remember,
Right.
the blood curdling scream is heard by the neighbor at around between midnight and 2 a.m. So
Wow.
in this window is when she is basically killed,
Right.
here in the boiler room, because there was an open vent. I believe she was hit with the flashlight in the head, and as Patsy's coming down, she screams. She sees it like this. Bang. And then it's silent because the woman says the scream just stopped. Okay? So that's between 12 and 2. This is the murder window. That's coming out of the boiler room. The body's discarded in the room over, hidden in the wine cellar. With the blanket and the Barbie nightgown, and she's wrapped. That's all staged. So my point is this. From 1 or 2 a.m. to 5:50, that's almost 4 hours.
Long time.
Clean up, getting your story straight, writing this ransom note, wiping down the flashlight and the stick and the rope and cleaning up. And I think Burke wakes up when they're on the phone and she's doing the 911. He just knows. And he's there. What's going on? What did you find? We're not talking to you. And yeah, it's sick. And
it is very sick and calculated.
But your point is this. They say they usher him out of the house at 7 a.m.
Yes.
He's a witness. Why are you removing him from the house? Why did the police let him do that? That was a mistake. He should not have. I don't care how old he is.
Yeah, he should have never been there. Those
other
people should never been there either. Like they were contaminating.
They use minors as witnesses all the time.
Yeah,
they use children. I have another case where a little girl saw the killer. And yeah, the defense attorney could say, well, she's only 5 years. Yeah, but still the jury needs to hear it. Yeah. The jury needs to know, what did Burke know?
What did he see?
Why is he ushered out of the house? Why are the Ramseys leaving town?
That was a very interesting thing, guys. Yeah. Going back, right? I think for me, a lot of true crime is really looking into people's behaviors, right? Because it's important to see how you act before and after a crime. Your actions speak louder than words. And
he's booking a flight to Atlanta.
What? Wait, okay, yes. I didn't like that. It was very telling for me.
I thought your daughter was kidnapped. Why are you leaving town?
They said 30 minutes. And this is, again, going back to the movie, guys. I'm going to definitely be leaving the movie that Chris Todd made me watch, which is a phenomenal movie on the JonBenét Ramsey case.
It's on YouTube for free.
Yes. And it is called The Perfect
Murder, Perfect Town.
There you go. So check it out. It's on YouTube. It's a great film. And they break down a lot of the evidence, a lot of the things that were going on in the case. And I think one of the biggest things was the 911 call, and which I thought was interesting because I was like, wow. And the information that he had his like private jet ready only 30 minutes after the body was found.
Or they were supposed to go to Michigan. They were supposed to go to Michigan. So again, he's got the perfect cover. Right? So he was a pilot, literally, and they were going to go to Michigan early in the morning. So Patsy was going to pack. They were leaving. They had a beach house or a cottage on the lake or one of the Great Lakes, whatever. So it was the perfect setup. But then he changes it. We're going to Atlanta. And they do. They flee to Atlanta.
They do. They even bury they also bury JonBenét Ramsey in Atlanta as well, correct? They don't bury her in Colorado.
I think you're right. I think she's buried. It's confusing because there's 2 funerals where her grave is. I think it is in Atlanta. You have to have your people look it up for us because I don't have everything in front of me.
Yeah, definitely,
But
guys. Shoot me down in the comments what you think. But I did think that they said that, they also did it in like their hometown, the church in
yeah,
their
I think
hometown, and
she
they
is
buried
buried
her.
in Atlanta because Patsy's buried there with her.
Wow.
So Patsy and JonBenét are like next to each other or whatever in the cemetery, and the funeral's like on her birthday, Patsy's birthday, like she's turning 40 or something. It's weird. Like her birthday's like December 28th or something like that. So there's like a ceremony in Boulder, and then there's like then they do the funeral there. So, but the whole thing, look, from the ransom note and or the phone call, that triggers everything and starts what we know. The rest is history as the case. We see the cover up over the 2 years. We see the indictment. Now we know it now. We see that the grand jury said there was evidence to indict. We see that Alex Hunter and Pete Hofstrom fought the police, the detectives, the FBI because of their ego, because they had the jurisdiction, they could do it. He
Right.
was the district attorney. He trumps the police.
Yep.
And that's what he did. And that guy needs to pay. I think he's still alive.
Wow.
And I challenge him to a debate too. And I challenge Joe Berlinger. And I challenge John Ramsey and John Andrew Ramsey and the Gary Oliva people. I challenge all of you to debate me anywhere, anytime. If you're so sure about that Patsy didn't do it and that John didn't know some cover up or some type of involvement, and I told CBS before they did Burke Ramsey, when they interviewed Burke, and I know the guy who caused the lawsuit. I know him personally.
Wow.
Yeah, I do. I know him. I won't say his name. Burke Ramsey sued them for $700 million.
And was he
So-
successful?
He won $9 million.
Wow.
So my story or my words here to CBS are, why don't you tell the truth? I told you. You wanted to chase a fake story that Burke did it. And you wanted to try to ruin his life for your own money and your own commercials. You lost $9 million. Maybe you broke even. Maybe you sold $20 million in ad sales and you lost $9. I get it. You don't care. Why don't you do your job? Dr. Phil, Jim Clementi. Why don't you guys do your job? Why don't you tell the truth? When you had all that evidence against Patsy Ramsey, but you're looking at the kid? How many 9-year-olds would stage an essay assault in a girl's private area with a paintbrush?
Yeah. I have a question about that, actually, because that was also, some key evidence. They did find
And
that
Burke Ramsey, wait, and also a 9-year-old tied this complicated knot and ligature? Oh,
and
really?
pulled. Yeah. There's no way that could have. I think that they actually even X'd out Santa Claus, the guy who was Santa Claus, because
That's Bill McReynolds.
Yes, because they said that he had heart surgery like 4 months before, and they don't feel like he was at physical capacity to do
They
something
ruined
like
that man's life. They said Santa Claus killed her. They say it in their book. They blame Fleet White. They blame everybody. They blame in their friends.
Yeah.
That's why she talks about Hitler in here. About propaganda and what if Hitler kept saying this and this and this, then you'll believe him. And she's equating that to the media saying Patsy and John. So you believed it. You're quoting Adolf Hitler, Patsy, in your book. You're sick.
Yeah.
You murdered your child. Most people know you did it, and you got away with it. Good for you. But now, today's day is to slam John Ramsey, Joe Berlinger, these other people, these other investigators behind Gary Oliva, telling fake stories. They talk about this victim down the street. The Daily Mail goes off and tells these stories. The Sun. Why don't you guys do your job? Oh, I asked him once. Oh, who's the source? The woman whose child was assaulted down the road. Oh, we can't tell you. Oh, of course you can.
Wow.
Did you vet your source? Does this person even exist? Probably not. And this is what I mean, the journalism. That's why and look, your platform is smaller. Hopefully it'll grow. But the whole point is you come out this gate like a thoroughbred. You come out trying to win the Kentucky Derby.
Amen.
Because you're in a very unique position to beat all these people.
I hope so. I mean, I'm really just in it for the love of it. I feel like I'm definitely someone who likes to get to the truth. I know you yourself, you're a truth teller. And that's why I think our energies just vibe. You are with the Kim Porter stuff. You did some amazing, amazing stuff when it came to Kim Porter. And that's how I met Chris Todd, is like I reached out to him. He has wrote so many books. So if you guys have not checked out some of his books, please do so. This is Shame on Shay. It's written by Chris Todd.
I have a new Kurt Cobain book out called Smells Like Heaven, Heaven, Smells Like Heaven, about Kurt Cobain's murder. And look, you're in a good position. And also, look, we could be light about this too. We don't need to be so dark and dreary.
Yep.
You have a podcast. You need content.
Absolutely.
You're allowed. You have the same rights as Nancy Grace, my dear. You have the same rights as Dr. Phil, Dr. Oz. You go and you tell your stories. You tell them how you want. That's your right. I'm glad and honored to be a guest here and there with you. That's all.
I'm always honored to be a guest with you here on Mama's Cocktail Hour, because like I said, like, you're a truth teller, and I love that about you. What do we have next up for you though? You said you just put out a new book. What do we have?
We got to do OJ.
Oh, I love it.
We got to do OJ.
So, I mean, I was a young girl when OJ, but I did study that in college.
Yeah, you're
but
young.
But I will get all up to speed. Before we jump into that, what are some last thoughts that you have on the JonBenét Ramsey case? Where do you want to see this go before we leave? What are some thoughts?
I would like for John Ramsey to shut up. I would like him to stop talking. I would like Hollywood to stop talking about JonBenét. Now, there's going to be a series that's going to come out starring Melissa McCarthy as Patsy Ramsey. There's going to be a scripted series, which I can't stop, and good for them. So hopefully, I'd like to see everything stop eventually about JonBenét. Stop talking about her. Everybody stop. Okay? And let this girl rest. We've got all the theories out there. My theory, your theory, John's theory, John Andrews' theory, Gary Oliva, the PIs from there, Court TV. We've all said it. Okay? This girl did get killed. Not by the boogeyman, not by Santa Claus, not by a terrorist organization. Seek the truth. Know the truth for her. Bring her justice by basically saying who really did it. I don't say John Ramsey did it. I say Patsy Ramsey did it. Okay? And there was a lot of cover-up. These people misbehaved. They need to be called out eventually in a way. So I know it sounds kind of contradictory. Hey, Chris, are we talking about it or are we not? My point is, this is almost 30 years ago.
Yes.
Okay? Almost. It's 29 years. I think this year was 96, right? Okay. So let this girl rest. It is a sad story. It's the greatest child murder case in American history, period. Yep. It's the greatest one ever. And I thank you for letting me talk and get to your audience. And I hope they read some of these books. I even suggest reading John and Patsy's book, because I think you're going to see something. You're going to hear them. You're going to catch them.
Right.
And I'm not saying put John Ramsey in jail. They're not going to put him in jail. They're not going to arrest him. But if we can shame him in the public, if we can tell the story for JonBenét, I think that is the greatest victory. It's not putting somebody behind bars necessarily. It's about getting the truth out for her, finally.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, nobody's here to advocate for her except for her dad. And if her dad had some alleged...
Think about that.
It's crazy. It's sad.
This guy who's possibly involved is the one speaking for her.
Yeah.
It's sick. And when Patsy was buried on her or next to her, whatever,
Yeah.
that's pretty. I mean, look, yeah, there's not words I can put into it. You know, it's her daughter, it's her life, it was their house, right? And I don't mean the physical house, it's their story, okay? They destroyed part of their family.
Yep.
And the country took onto it like a bunch of wolves.
Yep. And it was over sexualized and it was a case that has rocked the worlds of many people. And I appreciate you for coming on Mama's Cocktail Hour and giving me your perspective. Let me know where we can find you, Chris, if we wanted to find you.
Yeah, if you just Google Chris Todd Investigates or Chris Todd, OJ Simpson, usually my stuff pops up that way. So my email, hopscotchfree101@gmail.com, hopscotchfree, FREE 101@gmail. But I'm easy to find. My phone number's online. And I have an open door. Anybody could talk to me anytime. I look forward to doing OJ with you.
Yes, we're going to be doing
maybe
anything
Zodiac.
else. Zodiac. You guys also drop in the comments. Let me know what true crime stories you're interested in. Chris Todd is going to be coming back to the show. We're going to be collabing, doing more true crime for you guys. So thank you guys for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. And I will see you guys on the next video.
Catch you later.
Cocktail hour, so pour it up.